Hi, my name is Robin Wong, and in this video I want to talk about why it is pointless to argue about equivalence. Let's do this. Before we dive in too deep, allow me to clarify myself, and please do not get me wrong. I am not against equivalence. In fact, it is quite the opposite. I believe that understanding equivalence is necessary because equivalence is the reference to standardize all the different camera formats out there today, and we have a lot of different camera formats. However, if you take a look at any photography discussions online out there, whenever equivalence pops up, that particular discussion never ends well. It gets worse and worse, and you can find the worst of humanity in those discussions. It is like reading a horror story. I personally believe that these discussions that went on and on forever about equivalence has become somewhat meaningless. In case you have not noticed, photography discussions on equivalence is the most toxic photography discussions out there. What started out as something innocent, say someone comparing different camera formats, whenever the word equivalence pops out, it just quickly mutates into something really ugly. Say someone points out the obvious, the ISO 200 noise levels on macro 4/3 is equivalent to ISO 800 noise levels on a full frame, and a full frame image sensor has 4 times more surface area than a macro 4/3 image sensor, hence it captures 4 times more light, hence it is better. And the f2.8 on macro 4/3 is f5.6 on full frame, and that the manufacturers are cheating because they don't put the right F number and the dynamic range and the ISO high ISO level noise and this and that and the lens size and the camera size, and you can get the same size and this and that. Well, it just gets worse and worse and worse and worse to a point where it is not about discussing the camera systems anymore. You'll see that people start attacking other people personally, and they start calling out names, they start shaming other people for the lack of the knowledge or expertise, and it has become such a horror show. Why are we photographers fighting each other? Aren't we all in this together? What's the reason that you pick up your camera in the first place? If you are a professional photographer, you want to earn a living from photography. You should. Your client pays you. End of story. If you are a hobbyist, you pick up the camera, you go out and shoot, you have fun. You should enjoy photography. Why engage in such negativity? I just don't see the point. And equivalence discussions never end well. It shows the worst of photographers. It shows the worst of our behaviors. I just think that if there's one thing I can erase from the photography community, is the discussions on equivalence. Just ban any discussion on equivalence. It is not necessary. Equivalence proves nothing. Equivalence solves no problems. Believe me on this, because a lot of people are so stubborn, they're so selfish, and are so determined to prove other people wrong because they believe that what they know about equivalence, their expertise and understanding on equivalence is superior, that everyone else is wrong and they should listen to their logic and their scientific and technical explanation. So say that you are right, say that everyone else is wrong. What does it solve? Does it make you a superior photographer? Does it make other people any less than you? No, it solves nothing. It proves nothing. So at some point of the discussion, if you have certain things that you want to say, I'm not saying that, you shouldn't say anything. Bring your point across, share your thoughts. If people accept it, fine. If people don't, just let it go. You don't solve anything, you don't accomplish anything by spreading toxicity. You cannot bring anything positive out of a toxic discussion. So it has to stop at some point, and nobody is giving up. I'm not saying who is at fault. Everyone is in this together. Someone has to stop. And you know, when I say that equivalence proves nothing, here is a thought. A few years ago, Benjamin Lowy, a renowned war photographer, came to Malaysia. Sony Malaysia brought him in. I went to see his talk. Amazing photographer. I really respected his work. And when I look at his photographs, and he shared in a Sony talk, I think it was an Alpha 7 Mark II event, he shared that some of his work, the earlier work, was published on Time magazine. And you know what camera he used? He was using a smartphone. It was an earlier version of iPhone. There you go. Did he question equivalence when he took photographs of his smartphone and sent it to the editor? Did the editor say that, hey, you know, equivalence says that you don't have enough depth of field. Equivalence says that you have too much ice or noise. Equivalence says that there's not enough dynamic range, so I can't publish your shot on the Time magazine front cover. No, equivalence was never in the equation. And let me ask you this. How many photographs that you have been published on the Time magazine's front cover? I have none. So I'm not qualified to argue about equivalence. I think that 99.99% of the people talking about equivalence don't know what they are talking about. So the more we go on about this discussion, the more meaningless it becomes. It just accomplishes nothing. Here is a harsh truth for you to swallow. Being an equivalence expert does not make you a better photographer. So what if you know certain cameras are superior? So what if you go and try and prove and successfully done so that certain cameras are inferior? It doesn't make you any better. We all know that in photography, we have to work on composition, lighting, getting that decisive moment, visual storytelling, curation. There are a lot of things that we can work on. There are a lot of other things that we can argue on. I want to see people argue on lighting techniques. I want to see people argue on what's the best way to capture a decisive moment. I want to see people argue about the storytelling component in a photograph. How do we improve our storytelling? Instead of equivalence, 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 it does not bring your photography anywhere. There's no progress. You don't achieve anything. And I think that as photographers, we shouldn't be fighting. We should be taking our cameras, go out and shoot more. The more we shoot, the better we get. And we should share our photographs amongst each other. Talk about our photography. Talk about the stories that we tell through our photography. That is a more meaningful way to engage each other in online discussions. With all that's going on in the world today, with the COVID-19 pandemic, I think we could all use a little bit less negativity. To me, photography is an escape. Whenever I'm not shooting professionally, whenever I'm not shooting for a client, I pick up the camera, I go out and have shutter therapy. Photography is a lifestyle. I shoot for my soul. Photography is a healing process for me. So whenever I do photography, whenever I go out and shoot with my camera, I want nothing but positivity. And I wish the same for you. Therefore, I beg you to please stop arguing about equivalence. It is pointless. I want you to start shooting more. I want you to start enjoying photography. I want you to not engage in this toxic behavior or environment anymore. I think we could all be better. I think we could all be kinder to each other. That's all I have to share about why arguing on equivalence is pointless in this video. Do you agree with me? Or do you have any of your own thoughts and opinion? Please leave them in the comments below. I would love to hear from you. If you have enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up. Please consider supporting this channel by buying me a cup of coffee. I'll put the links in the description below on how you can do that. Any small contribution can go a long way and help me to continue making more videos to be published on this channel. Please also consider subscribing, and I'll definitely see you again in the next one. Until then, please go out and take more photographs and argue less on equivalence. Bye bye.